Hello, and welcome to an off-season episode of Bodied, a Cloud9 Fancast. I am your host, Havokpus, alongside with Frozencreek. How is your off-season going, Frozen?
Yeah, I'd prefer if it was like a summer season, but here we are. It is in the 60s out in Michigan, sprinkling. I have some friends who live in Colorado, and it snowed over the weekend. So at least I'm
Uh,
not them.
Apparently, it's like a hellscape over there because I think there was maybe also like some fires going on in Colorado or
I
somewhere.
think that was California and Oregon,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Because I
apparently
saw this picture of like a weather radar map or something, and it was like snow on some areas and then fire on other areas, and it was just like, oh man, I don't want to be there. I don't think I'd want to be there right now.
I mean I want to be there because Colorado is dope, but I don't want to be in the snow right now, and I don't want to be where there are giant fires going on.
Yeah,
So,
the fires don't sound fun.
yeah, my sister lives in San Diego, and I think she's got it right. So I should just move down there, and then I'd be an hour drive or so, 2 hour drive. I'm not sure from LCS.
Oh
Sounds
yeah,
a
that'd
lot
be
more
super
fun.
dope.
But we're not here for LCS today. Kind of
No,
more pressing news going on.
yeah, some stuff in the cloudiverse has happened. Pretty much like within the weeks that our LCS season kind of ended, and we can just dive right on in. Um, Probably with the biggest news, and that's CS:GO has kind of, I would say, out of nowhere. It could be that they kind of knew that this major in Rio that was kind of coming up was going to get canceled, but they made this big announcement that the team that we have currently is going to eventually kind of get uh, cut out. They're going to be with us, like acting as our team, like for the interim, while we bring in a completely new CS:GO roster. In management, we have signed HenryG, who is, or I guess was, a big CS:GO caster. He's been a caster for a while. Everyone knows him. And we have signed a head coach in Kassad, who he used to coach 100 Thieves. He's a very well-rounded
And
and
Renegades for a
yeah,
long
yeah,
time.
and Renegades. He was a very respected coach. I think people say that he's known for really elevating like a team's performance. So they're kind of teaming up to build, in their words, like a championship CS:GO roster. And I guess it's Cloud9 going back to the chase for being, I guess, the number one team after, I guess, like 2 years of just us not really, not really being anywhere near that level of competition anymore.
Yeah, it is a big statement of intent, I think. 100 Thieves has been decent. Kassad has actually taken 100 Thieves and Renegades to some pretty good heights. I have some of his last coaching achievements in front of me. 100 Thieves got second at IEM Masters Beijing last year. At the end of last year, they won the Asia Minor Championship at Katowice in 2019 as Renegades, and he's won a few other minor championships with Renegades and had some overall good um placements with 100 Thieves in our Renegades. So I think it is a pretty good statement of intent from Cloud9 to bring on Kassad.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. HenryG definitely knows how to, I think, get everyone excited. He's using all these words like colossal and you know, um, all these big fancy words to like just get everyone like, look, this is a big deal. You're gonna buy into this. And we already have one player bought in. We have Alex. He was it's so weird that CS:GO pros just have really bland names like Alex. It's not it's not exciting to say Alex. But we've signed Alex. He was the in-game leader for Vitality. He's kind of been a big up-and-coming name. Everyone has been a buzz about him in the CSGO scene, in how he's talented and is kind of maybe like the next generation of CSGO stars. So we've hooked a pretty big fish in Alex, and I think that the remaining spots of the team, I believe, like every 2 weeks, Cloud9 is going to announce another player as they're forming this roster. So it's pretty exciting, and it feels pretty big, and it feels good to like, you know, be jazzed about CS:GO and like, yes, we're gonna be a top team again. We're gonna be a contender rather than a scrappy underdog team. You know, trying to, I guess, like maybe improve and break top 20, maybe if we're good.
Yeah, and um, uh, Alex, who which is also his first name, he has helped lead Vitality to 15th best in the world over the past 12 months. So that's higher than Cloud9 has been since they won the Boston Major, I think.
I wouldn't doubt it.
So pretty big. Some other things that I noticed about the team. Alex and HenryG are both British, and Kassad is Serbian. So our core first three managing players slash managers are all uh, European. So I'm not sure if that's a statement of intent for the future or if that's just a matter of, or if we're going to be a European team or a North American team at this point.
I believe, and I could be wrong, but from what I've read and heard, the plan I think is to have at least like three. We're gonna have like 3 UK players. I'm not sure about the other 2 if they're also gonna be European or an American or what, but we're gonna have at least 3 UK players, and I think the plan is we're going to initially play in Europe, but then I think we're gonna do. I can't remember what team did it, but we're gonna take the team and then move them from Europe to North America. I think once it's easier to kind of move people and it's safe and whatnot. But it's really interesting, and I think it makes sense because looking at the North American landscape and from what I've heard from people, there's almost nothing in terms of a contender, like championship contender roster that you can build within North America. It's just impossible unless you can field large buyouts from contracts from like Team Liquid or Evil Geniuses.
Who got big bags?
Yeah, there's just no way. So I think you have to go to Europe just based on there's a larger talent pool and you can still make something very competitive there without perhaps breaking the bank and stuff. So it's, you know, it's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting strategy. I think it's a pretty sound approach. Henry and Kassad, like from what I've read, they are just like on the same wavelength about like this is what we want for the team. This is what we want to do. You know, here are the players that we have in mind to do it. So they have a game plan that they agree on. I think Henry, he said that going into signing for Cloud9, one of the things he talked about was like he wants full creative control over the team. You know, he doesn't want Jack or someone else from the org kind of butting in and controlling like what his decisions are. So like this is literally like Henry and Kassad's team basically. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what's going to happen within like the next few months as this new Cloud9 roster kind of comes together and we build this Voltron of talent and then see what they can actually do when they play together.
Yeah, and I feel like the best way to go about this kind of thing is to bring in the best people you can and let them make decisions, because that's kind of what we've been uh, been been doing with League of Legends. Reaper brought in all the players that he's wanted to, and we've had mostly success. A World Sem I final to back us up, and I really think that that's probably the best way to go about it if we're serious about building a real team at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you can't, if you have someone who knows what they're doing and has been in the scene for a while, and they have a vision, it's probably best to just let them do it and not interfere. So I'm really excited. I just can't wait to see who else we sign. There's been some rumors of some other players. Of course, they're pretty much at this point, like anyone who is in Europe or the UK and is a CS:GO player, like a top CS:GO player, people are saying like, oh, they could get this guy. So I'm not going to name names, but it'll be pretty interesting. But I think that's all I have to say about that. Do you have anything else, or do you want to go to the next topic?
No, I don't have anything else to add. I'm gonna try and find someone who's more versed in CS:GO for a future episode when there's a couple more players on. Oh,
Oh yeah, that would be really
one
dope to actually
one
talk to
last
someone.
thing. One last thing actually. And now that I think about it, it seems that HenryG and Kassad and Cloud9 are pretty set on making salaries and contracts public for these players. So what's your thought on that? HenryG is coming on what 3 years for 1.6 million?
Something like that, maybe. I think it's actually very interesting. And I think it could be helpful just in that you're actively broadcasting how much these players are worth, and it could create more of a player market to see, the org values this player at X, and then when their contract comes up, and other orgs may want to get this person, they'll have to talk to the org and say like, look, we stated that we value this player at this much. You're going to have to give us like at least this much, if not more. And I think that's a really interesting thing. I'm curious to see if other organizations will do that in the future, where they'll just start saying like, look, we bought this, we got this player, his contract is this, and everyone knows it. So it makes building teams maybe a bit easier, just having more transparency in terms of what an organization thinks a player is worth and all that. I think it's really interesting. I think it's definitely a new direction that I think that I don't think anyone is really doing. So it's really interesting. I think it's a very interesting gambit on our part, and it'll be interesting to see how that kind of affects the landscape like a year or so down the line.
Yeah, and I think this is a great not program, but a great push by the org to one say that they're willing to drop bags on players if you want to come play for us. Like if you want to make 1.65 mil over 3 years, then hey, we're looking for good players. So it's good for picking up players, but it's also good for players to also know the market value of people moving around like the top 15, top 30 teams. Like I have to imagine 1.65 million is more than all of our players were making from the old roster, and I imagine it's more than 2, 3, or 4 of them were making combined. So if if you know how much someone is worth on another team, it increases your bargaining power. So I think it's super good for players. I think it's a big it shows our intent that we're willing to drop bags on good players too. So I think overall it's good for the players and good for the scene.
Yeah, at least right now, it doesn't seem like there's any downside. I think anyone that I think anyone that's just a fan of organizational transparency is thrilled by this, because I think a lot of times when, at least not with Cloud9, but I think with lesser orgs, um, when they sign a player, it could be that something in the contract is kind of funky or weird. And yeah, and then one thing that I thought was really interesting was HenryG stated that no player will have any sort of streaming requirements in their contract. And I think that's really interesting because apparently it's a thing where players will have to like stream X number of hours within their contract, to play for an organization. We don't have any of that, which I think is great. And I think that's also a thing that is helping in terms of the transparency that there are apparently streaming uh commitments that you have to make. And it seems rather pointless when it's like I'm a player that is contracted to play at a high level. Why should I also have to stream when that's not benefiting me as a player and that's more benefiting the organization? You know, um, Under Cloud9, that's not going to be an issue. If players want to stream, they can stream, but they're not required by the org saying you have to stream like 40 hours or something, within a week to uphold your contract. So I think that's a really interesting point. I think that's something that's definitely maybe looking to get challenged with this whole contractual transparency thing if it really catches on.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't know that that was in there, but I'm not surprised just due to the fact that it's free advertising and such. I'm sure that there is a financial incentive for them to stream, but the fact that it's not uh, uh, required is interesting. I don't have much of an opinion on it though, from a player's perspective, but it might be nice for some.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what those streaming requirements like contain, but apparently it is a thing that at least with some teams they're forcing you to stream, and it's maybe they get whatever donations they get, they just get to keep. I would imagine that would be the case for at least some. But it's definitely interesting that that's a stipulation that is apparently a thing that I didn't know about until like right now.
Yeah, so hopefully that will help us pick up some players, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some of them will stream, but just because I'm sure that they get to keep subs and donations, but
Yeah. Any player under us can stream like in their free time, but it's not like a contractual obligation. I think that overall, what Henry is doing with the salaries and everything and making these big statements, it is nothing but great advertising to the CS pro community, and saying like, look, if you want to do something good, if you want to play at the very best, come, drop me a line and we can talk. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see who we bring in over the next like couple months.
yeah, I think now would be a good time to move on then.
Okay. Well, Overwatch season did end. Uh, it was not a pretty season, and it was something that was pretty rife with issues. I think that the coronavirus. I was watching the Nines, and Jack had mentioned that the virus had really thrown off a lot of their plans for pretty much everything. Like the CS team, a lot of the things that they were trying to do from like an organizational like culture standpoint, they just couldn't do because I think they kind of like the league house and the CS house were like nearby, but the virus happened. So Jack doesn't want any players getting sick, and so they can't like come over to do like workouts and stuff. They can't visit. Like Jack can't visit the CS players and everything. So the CS team kind of suffered with Overwatch. They had plans to like the team was going to play in New Jersey with a lot of the other North American teams, but then the virus happened, so then they had to go back to Korea. And actually, a few of the players I think actually got sick. And I think they had to go to the hospital. So that was something
Yeah,
that
it
was
sounds like
kind
they
of
got sick.
surprising.
Uh,
And
or yeah, It doesn't specifically say COVID, but yeah.
Yeah, he said that they got sick, and that's kind of a blanket thing. But he mentioned it, I guess, now that the season's over. But some players, they were sick, they had to go to the hospital. It was a whole thing there, and then they had to play against Korean teams, which they knew were going to be way, way stronger, and they had to just kind of struggle through this really rough season for them. But on the nines, he did take some questions, and I'm not sure if other people asked. I asked if there was any plans for the London Spitfire going forward. He says that there was going to be big changes in the offseason. I know that's kind of a generic statement, but I think for anyone that is a London Spitfire fan who wants to see the team do better, it seems like he's still wanting to hold on to Overwatch, and that he's not ready to quite give Overwatch up. So look for, I guess, eventually some big announcements. I'm kind of hoping for some big changes, maybe getting some actually big names to the team, or just do something to at least give us a fighting chance.
Yeah, and it is a little too early to talk about it and say that they're doing a good job or anything, but I think it's also a good statement of intent from Jack. It seems like there's money there to be spent because we're dropping it on CS:GO, and he's alluded to it at least dropping some on Overwatch League. We did pay 12 salaries plus coaches who probably weren't cheap last year, and obviously their results didn't work out. So I do think that we are getting to a place where we can be competitive towards the top, but I think we do need to fill a couple holes. Our DPS line dropped considerably once we got rid of Profit and who's the other guy? Profit
Birdring?
and Birdring, yeah. So
to be fair, Birdring was kind of streaky. That was his biggest issue.
yeah, but when he was on,
When he was on. Yeah, that's super true. I can't argue with that.
Yeah, and Prophet was arguably the best tracer in the whole Overwatch League last year. So we did lose a lot by changing our roster considerably, but I think that we are a few players away from being competitive. So
yeah, I'm kind of hoping that we make changes to our tank and our support line. From the games that I've watched, our DPS line seems to be fine. Like, we have Glister, and we have Alvo and a couple other players that seem to fit the bill of being able to be good TPS players. I think that's not the issue. I think anyone, as long as they have good mechanics, they can be a really top DPS player. The issue is more with team strategy and being in sync with your tank and your support line. But the problem that I think has really just plagued the Spitfire for the longest time is just that none of the rules are really in sync. Like, the tank line is operating separately from DPS and support's operating just disconnected from the other two roles as well. So it's kind of, we just have like these synergy issues where no one really wants to play as a really strong unit. And it's really difficult to get our team to do that. I'm kind of hoping that we sign some big veteran talent, someone that's been proven to be really strong and can lead the team and put up big numbers. I think that having just 12 rookies kind of be tossed into the deep end is it's ambitious, and I think had not the season played out the way that it had, we could have at least been more of a middle of the pack team playing against like all the other NA teams and everything that definitely weren't as strong as all of the Korean and Chinese teams. So I'm kind of hoping for changes there. Maybe just some coaching staff changes. We have like 4 coaches, I think, and that, to me, it kind of feels like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. We really only need probably 2, and I think the 2 that we have maybe aren't the best either. So big changes hopefully for the better, but it's too soon to say exactly what. But hopefully we'll get some news soon.
or yeah, And I'm sure there's going to be some teams that mail it in a little bit for next year if Overwatch doesn't fix their viewership problem on YouTube, because nobody is going to watch stuff on YouTube. So that's also an
I
issue.
still don't understand why they threw away their Twitch contract. I think maybe it was that the Twitch contract expired, and I think they were maybe trying to negotiate with Twitch, but that somehow fell through. I don't understand why you would throw away Twitch viewership for YouTube viewership when Twitch viewership is just, that's where everyone goes to watch esports. Like, sure, some people tune in on YouTube, but Twitch is where everyone goes to watch live stream games. That's just the hub. I don't know why you would abandon that for a secondary platform that isn't going to pull in as many viewers, despite, if they give you a better, monetary deal or not. It just seems like in the long run, it hurts you more, and it still frustrates me to this day.
Yeah, it was a weird decision. I have to imagine that YouTube offered a decent amount of money at the very least that Twitch wasn't going to offer them. But if they can fix viewership and get people to play the game again and care about the game, then I would like to see Overwatch succeed.
Yeah, I would as well. I think it's a really interesting game that it's a hero shooter with a very objective oriented kind of game style, rather than, tactical shooters like Valorant and Rainbow Six and all that, where it's more focusing on getting the kills to get to the objective. Overwatch is kind of the opposite, where you have to get to the objective to get kills. And it's really focused a lot around teamwork. I think that Overwatch's biggest issue has just been that their balance team has just been awful. If you look at Valorant and League of Legends, Riot is patching their game like every 2 weeks, or at least. Overwatch, I think you go months before, potentially before a patch comes out to fix a game where it's like, hey, this character's a problem, and their approach to fixing the problem is to just, we'll change their numbers to where they're just absolutely horrible. But then they at the same time will bump up other numbers to make another thing like really good, because it's like, oh well, no one's playing Genji anymore, so then they overbuff Genji, and then I think over nerf some other stuff. And it's like, well, Genji's really strong again, so then they overly nerf Genji, and then just make something else strong. They have a really poor balance philosophy, and I think that some of the decisions that they made in the past, like goats, and in addition to a few other mechanics and stuff, has really painted themselves in the corner, and they're just having a really hard time balancing the game. So if they don't fix that, I think that the game's still going to have the same problems that it's had, viewership or not.
Yeah, I agree there. I think that's all I have about Overwatch.
Yeah, I don't have much else. One thing about Valorant, our Korean team actually had some matches. I think it was, maybe this is our first event. We played in the I think it's, I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce it. Huya? I think it's the Huya TV tournament. What's really weird about that event was that it was like, there was like one group stage, and we went 2-1 in that. And then we had like a second group stage to eliminate some teams, so we could, like, the final bracket would be like a semifinal and then a final, and like a third place match. But it was really weird that there were 2 group stage matches. But we got through both of the group stages. I caught some of the games yesterday. I caught the games they were playing yesterday for the second group stage, and they were really fun to watch. They were really, really aggressive. I think that's something that maybe Korean teams and Chinese teams have. Because I think this was a tournament where both Chinese and Korean teams were playing. But it was really interesting because teams were just really aggressive in how they played, and it was really interesting to watch. But we were moved on to the semifinals. I'm really excited to see how the Korean team does, since this is kind of a mix of Apex and Overwatch players. So hopefully they can go pretty far to kind of make a statement in a region that really hasn't been too many events for Korea and China, which is interesting considering that you'd think that Riot would put a lot more emphasis on trying to get events and stuff going there.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch them, so
I don't blame
that's
you. It
still
was
going
like
on.
early in the morning.
Okay.
Like I think like maybe the
going
first or
on
second
still.
match was at like 4,
Oh, okay.
like 4 my time, and then like the next one was at like 6. So like
Yeah,
I don't
I was
blame
not
you.
awake
Like
that.
they were early in the morning, so I really can't blame you for missing them. I just wanted to give that update because our Korean players, they don't get a lot of spotlight because pretty much everyone from North America is like asleep when they play, and maybe some people from Europe are awake, but they don't get as much like, you know, screen time of C9 promoting them and people talking about them. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Awesome. So they have finals coming up. So I'll keep my I will keep my eyes open to try and catch something at the very
Yeah,
very least.
hopefully you can at least catch it.
All right. Is our last thing LCS?
Yeah. We don't have to talk too in depth about the finals, but I will say that the finals was a really weird match. It went to all 5 games, but it was a very frustrating 5 games.
I did not watch it, I'll be honest. I would have watched it if it was Team Liquid and FlyQuest, but I didn't really want to watch TSM win, so I kind of stopped and just chose not to watch it.
I watched it because I wanted to see FlagQuest, make a run for the trophy. The only issue with that was that like FlyQuest just didn't show up. Like even in the games that they won, they really struggled to kind of win. And FlyQuest just they look so off. Like Solo was just getting completely abused. Like all 5 matches, TSM was just going top and just completely abusing him to the point where like he could barely play the game. Something similar was kind of felt for Turtle, I think. Ignar pulled out the support Pantheon a couple of times, and I was upset personally because it's just like, why would you pick support Pantheon? It really hasn't worked for you this whole year. Why would you do this? You know, and some of their other drafting choices were just really confusing. It was just really frustrating to watch like FlyQuest look so bad in the final game when it was like everything is on the line. You have to play well, and they just were not playing well at all. Like it didn't really feel like a finals match. Like TSM and C9 felt like a finals match. And I think maybe Liquid and FlyQuest felt like a kind of like a finals match, but TSM versus FlyQuest didn't feel like a finals match at all, and it was really disappointing.
Oh, well, I believe you, but FlyQuest deserved it, so I'm glad that they got a decent seed out of it too.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about going into Worlds? I'm actually kind of a hot take. I'm actually excited for Worlds in that teams like we have like at least 4 teams that I think people expected to go to Worlds didn't make it. You have like Cloud9, FPX, T1, and IG, I think.
Also, on top of the Vietnamese teams too.
Yeah, on top of Vietnam,
Collect
which is
Wolves.
like a region that everyone loves to watch at international events. So you're having all of these teams that everyone expected kind of world to go to Worlds have failed. So now you're having a lot of more teams that I think maybe people didn't expect or maybe people weren't going to look at before. Now they're kind of looking at now. So it's going to be really interesting, I think, this year to watch Worlds. I know I'm going to be bummed to not see Cloud9 there, but I think at least from the standpoint of the teams that we're sending and the fact that some other teams aren't going, it will at least make it really interesting. I still expect us to get slaughtered, but it'll at least be a fun slaughter, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be cool to see Top Esports and JDG compared to the rest of the world. Both of those teams are probably head and shoulder above everyone, and maybe the only teams that could maybe compete are G2 and maybe Damon or DRX. But I think the two Chinese teams are going to be far too strong. So I think it'll be fun to watch them play G2 and stuff. So that'll be fun. It sucks that Cloud9's not going, and I probably won't watch quite as many games as normal, but it is still a fun time of year. So I know I can't miss it.
Yeah. I think at least for me, it'll be a thing of me not trying to like stay up or like wake up really early to watch the games, because anytime that Cloud9 went over to like Korea or China, I'd like make a point to set my alarm to wake up early so I could watch like opening ceremonies and all the games and everything. But since they're not going, it's kind of a thing like, well, I can probably just catch up with like the rerun stream that they play like when it's done for the Western audiences. So I'm still gonna watch it. Like, I think that Worlds is something that, like, if you're an esports fan, if you're a League of Legends fan, you really can't miss. So I'll still watch it. It probably won't be with the same zeal and excitement that I would usually have, but I think it'll still be a good time. I'm hoping maybe we can see some upsets. Maybe we can see some good stuff. Maybe Double Up can finally get out of groups.
I wouldn't go that far.
He's cursed. He's cursed to never
Although-
get out of groups.
He does have a good seed to do it, so maybe this is the year. But they are going to be in a group with a Chinese team and a European team guaranteed. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah. I think NA is going to have a really rough time, especially since we look definitely like the weakest out of a lot of the other major regions coming in. Maybe we can see something. I'm really excited, and it should be a good time regardless. I don't really have anything else. One thing I did want to kind of add at the tail end here, just also watching the Nines, Jack did kind of hint at some involvement in some other FPS games and some other future projects down the line. He said he couldn't say too much about it, but there were a lot of secrets in the work. He's got plans, and I'll try to look out for anything exciting and new and shiny for Cloud9. But just a little something at the tail end to get everyone at least a bit excited while we're in this very big off period.
Yeah, we got a while, and the only thing to look forward to now is Worlds and CS:GO assembling the roster over apparently 12 weeks.
Yeah,
And if
I
it
think
takes
he
them
did
2 weeks
mention that
each
there's going to
time.
be for the League of Legends team, there is going to be some big changes, since I guess the one benefit of us not making Worlds is that he can really look into trying to fix what was broken within the team. He said that there was going to be a lot of changes into practice culture and how they approach scrims. He said he was also going to look at our current coaching configuration and how he can change that to make that better. That's kind of a vague statement. It doesn't really hint towards anyone coming or going right now. He just says coaching configuration, quote unquote. So I'm not sure if that means that someone steps in to actually just be a draft coach. I'm not sure if we're getting a draft coach or we're gonna just get a new head coach. That's like such a blanket statement. But he said that he is looking into changing how the team is coached, how the team is practiced, how they prepare actively for a match, and how they execute on that preparation. So I think at least the one good thing to come out of that not going to Worlds is that we actually have time now to sit down and say, like, look, here is what we have that are problems. How can we fix these problems?
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't expect anything too big to happen unless somebody gets poached. Like, uh, who's the jungler again? Who we signed as assistant coach?
Oh, Rainover.
Rainover.
Yeah, I could
Unless
see
Rainover
Rainover
or West Rice
or
gets
West
poached.
Rice. Yeah, I could see them going to another team because they've been really good coaches. I think even with this summer's kind of failing, West Rice and Rainover have consistently been really good at not only building up academy talent, but being able to assist in helping a team maintain like a top, at least regular season spot. I could see teams making offers and trying to get them, and that could definitely have that could cause some problems. I don't expect anything too earth-shattering, at least not right now. We have months and months of time to wait and to kind of chill and have a break, and then kind of we may hear about some rumblings probably when the team goes into boot camp mode. He did he mentioned that he had a plan for if the team would be able to go to Korea or not. He definitely wants the team to try to boot camp in Korea, but if not, they'll try to boot camp in North America and try to do that as best as they can. But we may hear more towards boot camp. Who knows? But I think that's at least a good sign that C9, from Jack himself, has acknowledged we have problems. We're going to try to fix the problems. So I think that's at least a silver lining to look towards.
Yep. Well, I think that's about it.
Yep.
For this week. We will have more CS:GO signings on the horizon, and I will work to try and find a Cloud9 CS:GO fan or a general CS:GO guy to bring in.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you when we see you, I guess. Thanks for listening. As always, be sure to follow us at C9 Bodied, and we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.